I was sitting with my coffee this morning and really trying to wrap my head around the numbers coming out of the tech world lately. And honestly, the math just isn't mothing.
You're talking about the new productivity numbers.
Exactly, yeah. We seem to be living in this sort of bizarre split screen reality right now. Because on the one side, you have these individual stats that are just absolutely bonkers.
Oh yeah, they're staggering.
Right. I mean, we're seeing individual coders moving 38% faster,
Mhm.
and we're seeing knowledge work, writing analysis, the kind of stuff that used to take all day, seeing quality jumps of 40% while taking like a quarter less time.
It's massive.
It is. If you look just at the person sitting at the desk, we are living in a golden age of efficiency.
It really sounds like an economic miracle when you frame it like that.
It does, but then you look at the other side of the screen. You look at the company P&L, the bottom line, and it's just a flat line. Merger timelines aren't shrinking at all. Organizational revenue isn't exploding. It's this productivity paradox.
Right, everyone is running faster, but the car itself isn't actually moving any closer to the destination.
Exactly. So the mission for our deep dive today is to figure out why. Why is there such a massive disconnect between, the superhero employee and the stagnant company?
It really is the defining question right now. And to get to the bottom of it, we are diving into a really fascinating and, frankly, kind of uncomfortable piece of research. It's titled Beyond Automation Strategic Workflow Redesign for Agentic AI by Jonathan H. Westover, PhD.
And when you say uncomfortable, I'm guessing you mean he's telling us we're doing it all wrong.
Basically, yes. I mean, he's saying we have the wrong philosophy entirely. Westover argues that most organizations are falling into this huge trap. They think AI is just a shiny new spark plug that can drop into an old engine to make it go faster.
Just swap it in and zoom away.
Right. But his argument is that unless you fundamentally redesign the engine itself, the actual workflow, and specifically move towards something he calls agentic AI, you're really just spinning your wheels.
Okay, agentic AI. We need to put a pin in that immediately because I feel like AI just means chatbot to most people. We really need to be precise here.
Yeah, that misconception is actually the first trap. Think of a chatbot like your basic ChatGPT interface. Think of it like a really smart, really fast librarian. You ask a question, it gives an answer.
And then it just waits.
Exactly, it waits. It's passive. It's a tool in a box.
It only moves when I push it.
Right. Agentic AI is a completely different beast. An agent has goals. It has memory. It can access and use other tools. So instead of asking a bot to summarize a PDF, you would tell an agent, analyze the market for this product, go search the competitor database, draft a summary, and then email it to the product team.
So it's not just answering, it's acting. It's actually navigating the environment.
It has agency,
Yeah.
hence agentic. And that distinction between a tool you hold and an agent that acts autonomously is why Westover thinks most companies are failing to see those big productivity gains at the organizational level. They're treating agents like static tools.
Well, let's talk about what's actually happening in offices right now. Because even if companies aren't officially adopting these agents yet or haven't redesigned their workflows, the workers certainly aren't waiting for permission.
Oh, absolutely not. The research points out that about 50% of American workers are using AI right now. Tools like ChatGPT, Claude Gemini.
But here's the kicker. A huge chunk of them aren't telling their boss about it.
The dreaded shadow AI.
It sounds like something out of a spy movie, but it creates this really dangerous dynamic, doesn't it?
It creates a bifurcated reality. Just think about it from the employee's perspective for a second. You find a tool that does your work in half the time. So you finish your tasks at 2 in the afternoon instead of 5.
You look like a rock star. Or you just get a really long lunch break.
Exactly, you get all the benefit.
But the company absorbs all the risk.
Precisely. Because where is that data going? It's often going straight into public models. You've got IP leakage, you've got compliance blind spots. Yeah. And crucially, the company captures none of the value. If you use shadow AI to finish your work early, the company doesn't actually make more money.
The efficiency is trapped at the individual level.
It is trapped completely.
It really reminds me of the bring your own device era where everyone started using iPhones for work and IT departments lost their collective minds because they couldn't control the endpoints.
That's a great comparison.
But there was another layer to this landscape that Westover describes, and I found this visual really helpful. He calls it the jagged frontier.
It is a brilliant term. We tend to assume technology gets better in a straight line, right? Like if a computer is smart, it's just smart at everything. If it can beat a grandmaster at chess, it must be able to schedule a simple meeting.
But AI is spiky.
Extremely spiky. It has a jagged capability frontier. It excels at high cognitive tasks. It can analyze a complex patent law document in seconds or write perfect Python code for a highly specific function.
But then you ask it to do something we as humans consider simple.
Right, like navigating a nuanced negotiation with a sensitive client, or understanding the weird political subtext of an office email chain.
And it just falls flat on its face.
Completely. So you can't just apply a blanket strategy. You can't just walk in and say, well, AI does our legal work now. You have to experimentally map the tasks. You have to find those jagged edges.
Which takes effort.
And that experimental mapping is exactly what most companies aren't doing. They're just plugging it in.
Which brings us to the absolute core of the problem. Westover calls it the plug-in fallacy.
This is the villain of our story today. The plug-in fallacy is this belief that if I make one step of a process faster, the entire process automatically gets faster.
Which sounds totally logical. If I drive faster, I get at the grocery store sooner.
Sure, only if there's no traffic and only if the store is actually open when you get there. Let's look at the GitHub Copilot study mentioned in the source. This is a perfect example of this trap. They found that individual coders using AI were 55% faster at completing tasks.
55%. That is a massive number. If I'm a CEO, I'm seeing dollar signs. I'm thinking, great, I can fire half my developers, or amazing, we're going to ship double a product next month.
But you can't, and you won't. Because coding, the actual typing of the syntax, is just one step in the software lifecycle.
Okay, let's walk through that for the listener. Say I'm a coder and I just blaze through my task. What happens next?
Well, usually that code goes to a review process. Then it goes to quality assurance, or QA. Then it goes to a security scan. Then it has to be deployed.
All right, so there's a whole chain.
Exactly. If your QA team is the exact same size, and your security review still takes 3 days, and the deployment pipeline is clunky, what happens to all that super fast code?
It just sits there. You've essentially just built a massive parking lot.
You've created a bottleneck. You have a mountain of inventory, the code just waiting to be checked. The study showed that enterprise value, the actual speed to market, only happened when they redesigned the continuous integration pipeline.
They had to widen the pipe to handle the faster flow of water.
That's the bumper sticker right there. Don't automate the task, redesign the flow. If you don't change the downstream process, the upstream speed is entirely worthless.
So if that's the wrong way to do it, just plugging it in, what does the right way actually look like? There's a case study in the source about a biopharma company that really seemed to nail this.
This is probably my favorite part of the research because it highlights the fundamental choice leaders have to make. So imagine you're a biopharma company. A huge part of your job is literature reviews. You have to read thousands of scientific papers to find potential drug targets.
Which is a perfect job for AI. It reads faster than any human ever could.
Right. Now, the cost reduction mindset, which is where most companies start, says, great, the AI reads the papers now. Let's fire the junior researchers who used to do that.
Save on headcount. Short-term profit. The board loves it.
But it's a trap. This company didn't do that. They used agentic AI to scan the databases, flag the findings, and summarize them, but they kept the humans.
So what did the humans do if they weren't reading papers all day long?
They focused entirely on hypothesis generation. They used the AI to widen their lens. Instead of looking at one therapeutic target at a time, they looked at 20 simultaneously.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they used the AI to synthesize connections between papers that a human might miss simply because of the sheer volume of reading required.
So they didn't just do the exact same work cheaper. They did more work. They expanded their capabilities.
Westover calls this capability expansion. And that is the secret sauce. If you use AI to cut costs, you get a hollow organization. If you use it to expand capability, you get innovation. They were doing science at a scale they physically couldn't afford to do before.
That distinction right there between cost reduction and capability expansion feels like the whole ballgame. And here's where the research takes a turn that I think is really critical. I mean, Westover talks about the human cost of this transition.
Yes.
And he's not just talking about layoffs. He's talking about something much more subtle, which he calls the apprenticeship crisis.
This is the heavy stuff. This is absolutely what keeps HR directors up at night.
Because we all hate grunt work, right? The drudgery. Drafting the basic memo, formatting the slide deck, reading the endless case law, scrubbing the Excel file. We try to get rid of it as fast as possible.
But Westover argues that drudgery is actually learning.
It's the wax on, wax off from Karate Kid.
It really is. Think about banking or law. Junior associates spend years doing the really boring stuff. But that is the mechanism by which they build tacit knowledge. That is exactly how they learn what a good contract smells like versus a bad one. They learn the texture of the work by struggling through the basics.
I see where this is going. If agentic AI takes away the grunt work, if the AI writes the first draft of the contract perfectly in 10 seconds, the junior associate never actually struggles with it.
And if they never struggle, do they ever really learn? Westover warns that we are rapidly creating a generation of supervisors without mastery.
Supervisors without mastery. That is a terrifying phrase.
It's a massive risk. Think about it. You have a 24-year-old supervising an AI agent. The AI produces a highly complex legal strategy. The 24-year-old looks at it, nods, and says, "Looks good."
But they don't actually know why it's good. They haven't put in the reps.
They're just rubber stamping it. And fast forward 5 or 10 years, who becomes the senior partner? Who becomes the creative director?
Exactly. If you hollow out the bottom of the pyramid, where do the expert at the top even come from? You're burning the bridge of skill acquisition.
Yeah.
You might have a very efficient company today, but you're brain draining your own future.
Precisely.
Okay, so we obviously can't just let that happen. That's an existential threat to literally any industry that relies on expertise. Does Westover offer a solution? Or are we just doomed to be dumb managers of smart robots?
No, thankfully he does have a strategy. But it requires a lot of intentionality. He suggests two main things. First, on the structural side, you need experimental workflow redesign.
Which implies we aren't just guessing anymore.
Right. It involves decomposition. You break a job down into its atomic parts, use process mining, you figure out exactly where the handoffs are between the human and the agent. You explicitly move the human from execution, actually doing the thing, to supervision and synthesis.
But wait, that sounds like it just reinforces the problem. If I'm just synthesizing, I'm still not practicing. I'm still just the rubber stamper.
And that's exactly why you need the second concept, which is judgment labs.
I loved this idea when reading the source. It feels very proactive. Tell us how a judgment lab actually works.
It's a brilliant concept. The source mentions a consulting firm that realized their juniors were losing that critical training ground, so they created simulated environments judgment labs.
Okay.
Instead of juniors being asked to write the first draft of a report, they are given an AI-generated draft that has deliberate flaws hidden inside it.
Well, that's clever. It's like a game. Find the mistake.
Exactly. Their job is to critique the AI, to debate alternative approaches with each other, to find the hallucination or the weak argument. It turns learning from a passive watch and do into an active analyze and critique.
So you're manufacturing the experience they used to get from drudgery. You're explicitly teaching them to have an opinion, not just to produce an output.
You have to, because the work itself won't teach them anymore. The grunt work is gone. You have to build a gym because the manual labor that used to keep everyone fit is just gone.
That makes total sense. It's deliberate practice. Now, there's one other practical hurdle here that we touched on earlier when we talked about shadow AI. The IT department, the department of no.
Right. And you really can't blame them. Central IT is designed for safety, not speed. Procurement takes months. In the AI world, a month is a decade. If you wait for IT to vet and approve a tool, 3 newer, better versions have already come out.
So how do you balance don't leak our data with let us use the cool toys so we can stay competitive?
Westover calls for distributed governance, or more colorfully, safe corridors.
I like that imagery. What does a safe corridor look like in, say, a bank or a hospital?
Instead of a central body saying yes or no to every specific new app, they set the guardrails. They define the data privacy standards, the security protocols, the API limits, federated stewardship.
The rules of the road, basically?
Yeah, right. And the deal is as long as a business unit stays within those guardrails, inside the safe corridor, they can adopt whatever tool they want. They don't need permission for the specific tool, just compliance with the standard.
So the marketing team can pick a writing tool, the dev team can pick a coding tool, and they don't need a 6-month review process for each individual one.
Exactly. There's an example in the text of a bank that created a responsible AI council. Their job wasn't to ban tools, but to facilitate quick approval within risk boundaries. It treats employees like adults. It essentially says, we trust you to innovate as long as you don't crash the car.
Radical concept, treating people like adults.
Right.
So pulling back to the 30,000-foot view, this all really comes down to leadership, doesn't it?
Right.
Westover frames this as a binary choice for CEOs.
It is the defining choice of this era, cost reduction versus capability expansion.
We touched on this with the biopharma example, but let's look at the dark side again. The cost reduction trap.
It's the default mode for so many executives because it's easy to measure. I fired 10 people, I saved X dollars.
And Wall Street usually cheers for that in the short term.
Briefly. But it's a death spiral. Look at the radiology example in the text. There's this constant fear that AI replaces doctors. If a hospital uses AI just to spot tumors and then cuts the number of radiologists, what actually happens?
So you definitely save money on salaries.
But you burn out the remaining staff, the patient experience likely gets much worse because it becomes purely transactional. You turn your hospital into a factory line.
Versus the capability expansion approach.
The source highlights a health system that used AI for the first pass on diagnostics. It flagged the anomalies on the x-rays. This didn't replace the radiologists, it freed them.
Freed them up to do what exactly?
To handle the complex, ambiguous cases that AI still struggles with, remember the jagged frontier. And crucially, to actually talk to patients.
Imagine that. A doctor with time to actually sit down, explain the diagnosis, and discuss the treatment plan.
Throughput went up, turnaround times dropped, and job satisfaction skyrocketed. They used the tech to make the job more human, not less. That's the expansion mindset. You ask, what could we do now that we couldn't do before, rather than just asking how much money can we save?
Before we wrap up, I do want to throw in one reality check the source mentioned, because all this talk of expansion and infinite capabilities sounds great, but it's not free.
No, it's definitely not. Westover puts a big red flag on infrastructure. We talk about AI like it's magic floating in the cloud, but it's actually chips, massive data centers, and electricity.
It's heavily physical.
It is incredibly resource intensive. AI sustainability is a binding constraint here. You can have the best AI strategy in the world, but if you can't get the GPUs, or if your power bill completely destroys your margin, or if the grid literally can't support your data center, it's game over. Companies need to model the physical cost, not just the software license.
So let's bring this all together for everyone listening. We started with the productivity paradox, the idea that individual tools are making people fast, but companies are remaining slow.
And we found that the missing link is workflow redesign. We are taking jet engines and strapping them to horse carts.
We have to redesign the cart. We have to move from chatbots to agents. We have to accept that shadow AI is already here and govern it with safe corridors instead of outright bans.
And most importantly, we have to protect the human brain. We have to build things like judgment labs so we don't wake up in 10 years with a workforce that has completely forgotten how to think.
That's the part that really sticks with me. And I want to leave you, the listener, with a final thought on something to chew on. Westover talks about supervisors without mastery.
It's the biggest long-term liability we face.
But I want to push it one step further. If we successfully redesign work so that AI does all the execution, all the writing, all the coding, all the calculating, and humans just evaluate the result.
It raises the question, can you evaluate what you can't do?
Exactly. Can you spot a subtle flaw in a legal argument if you've never written one from scratch? Can you critique code if you haven't spent sleepless nights debugging your own terrible syntax? We are redefining expertise from doing to judging. The question is judging a standalone skill, or is it the scar tissue you only get from doing?
If it's the scar tissue and we stop getting scars, we might be in real trouble.
That is going to keep me up at night. Something to think about while you're optimizing your workflows this week. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into Beyond Automation.
See you next time.
Bye, everyone.